Everyone had to come in because they took the tubes out to test if I could breathe, but I couldn't. So they put all the tubes back in and everyone had to sadly come in. And my whole family had to come and say goodbye to me. And then the next day, they turned the machine off and I breathed. I breathed.
Welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast. For those who are new to the show, my name is Keegan Hipgrave. And guys, if you haven't already, got to get you to jump over, give us a little like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, whether it's Apple, YouTube, Spotify. It's a great way for us to grow the platform, grow the podcast, and just have some incredible guests like I have on today. In this episode, I'm so excited to jump into this story because it is a truly inspiring story. In this episode, I'm joined by Alexa Leary. Lex, how are you?
I'm good.
Geez, I love the pink that you brought in today.
Of course. I'm like literally obsessed with it.
Why is that? Because I remember when we first caught up at Blackboard a couple months ago now, and then again in the pink. Like, what is it about it?
I got like obsessed with it because I was in a big accident. And they like had to shave my whole head and except for like this little bottom bit down here.
Gotcha.
They left it and I just wanted to have some little bit of hair because I didn't have it for like ages. And I'm just like all of a sudden everything, because I had like 7 or 9 brain operations and they would always dye this end bit pink. So I literally would look at it and I just become obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's pink, pink, pink. So everything has to be pink now.
Well,
like everything.
Well, it looks great. It looks great. I do want to dive into the accident. I do want to understand what happened. But before we do, I kind of want to understand how much you remember of life before the accident.
So my short-term memory, it's not really there. So like as the neuro doctors say, so the brain doctors, they said like as the day of the accident, so the 17th of July, 2021, they said from that day that I don't have memory 3 years prior.
Wow.
Yeah, at all. And
so you don't remember anything of the last 3 years?
No, I've got some people, some friends that I met a year before the accident. I don't know who they are. I look at my phone camera and stuff and I'm like, oh, it's that person, but it doesn't form in my head who they are.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's okay.
And so, but sport was obviously such a big part of your life beforehand. How much do you remember of what you were doing beforehand?
Oh, ADHD. I just wanted to do everything, basically. Everything.
Yeah.
I had to do everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just, I was always doing it, like every day. Like,
What kind of sports were you doing growing up?
I was doing triathlon. I actually did a lot more other things like water polo, basketball. There was everything.
I didn't know you did water polo.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Because I did water polo as well. Like growing up, it's so much fun. So you're obviously a good swimmer growing up.
Yeah.
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 Did all like the swimming squads, just being active.
Yeah, but I just wanted to go further because I was like, I can swim so good, but my parents were cyclists, so I was like, I want to cycle as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and I want to run, so it's a triathlon. I'm in for that. That's how it was.
So that's what drew you into the triathlon? Because that was my probably one of the biggest questions.
Yeah.
Was just like what attracted you initially to triathlon?
Oh, I just loved it because it was like 3 different sports, so it just like took me. I was just like, I can do 3 different things, like basically those sports, but I was just so like onto it, like, oh my God, I just want to do that.
Yeah. When you were doing the triathlons, do you remember what kind of goals you had leading up? Was there like a big event that you wanted to get to or something that you were training for?
Yeah, so I obviously wanted to go to the Olympics. That was like a big goal of mine. I was like, yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah.
I'd like to, yeah.
And you can do that in triathlon?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So sick.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the key parts of this story is the accident. Yeah. And I think we should zoom in on that. Can you recall what happened or describe what other people might have told you about what happened in the accident?
Yeah, so my mum and dad, like, they've told me because I don't remember the day of the accident happening and what happened. I've got no idea. I can never, ever say what happened, but I know of it.
Yeah.
So I do know my little story.
So what happened?
So what happened was I was on a bike and we were out for a bunch ride, like a long one.
A bunch ride is like
cycling.
Bunch of people.
Yeah, a bunch, like all of us, there's a bunch and everything. And I was doing so well, my dad tells me, and apparently I got off the bike just beforehand. We were we'd stop somewhere. We were near like a little stop. You know, you stop and have to water and stuff.
Maybe a little coffee.
Yeah. About that.
Maybe that.
But apparently I messaged my dad and I told him I made it with the A grade bunch. The first time I made it with the good group and I'd made 80K or something. And I was like, oh my goodness. I had a beanie on and I took my beanie off and put it in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Right? So what happened was as we keep going, we were going down a big hill and I was going apparently 70 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, like a big, big hill, I clipped the wheel in front of me because I used to suck up on people's wheels quite badly.
But I've just started cycling and I talk to a lot of people and they say you've got to stay super close and I was like, well, what
it's
if
a
you
suck
clip?
up. That's what you do. I'm
Is
like,
that
my
what it's
dad,
called?
you want to suck up to them so you stay with the bunch. It's like you suck up.
Yeah.
I obviously did that and I was sucking up way too close and all of a sudden, I don't know, but I fell and I smacked my head first on the ground, like the road first, and my helmet flung off and I smacked my left side like very badly and stuff like that. But as that happened, apparently I was just out of it and everything. But the weirdest, they call it, it's like the biggest miracle of the accident. On the other side of the road on that day, there was a doctor riding up the other side of the road and he saw the whole thing happen.
No way.
Yeah, he walks over. He had to put me in a breathing position because my lung completely collapsed. I wasn't breathing or anything. And it was at the back of Pomona, so it was like out of sunny. There was no reception, no nothing. But luckily, again, so the doctor apparently puts me in this breathing position and then a car randomly comes down the hill. Randomly. Then no cyclist had reception or anything. Some of the boys in the car drives out 10 kilometers for reception to call the ambulance. They called it. The ambulance were parked around the corner on that day.
Wow.
So that's why they say it is an absolute miracle because otherwise I would have died on the spot basically, but I had help instantly.
Is that what the doctor said?
Yeah.
If you didn't have everything?
I would have had nothing. Like there's no reception. There was the doctor riding up the bike. It's a miracle. He put me in a breathing position and stuff like that. But then after the ambulance picked me up, they took me to the Sunshine Coast Hospital and that hospital said, she's so bad, we can't do anything. So they actually put me on a helicopter and flew me to Royal Brisbane Hospital, but they said I won't make the flight. But I did, and I lived it. I was like, not like I remember, but I'm like, I lived.
So that's so wild to think about that.
Yeah.
Even doctors were saying beforehand to say the chances are that you're probably not going to make it. It's almost like defying the odds.
Really, yes.
100%.
Yeah.
And so what happens next after you go to Brisbane?
So after Brisbane, the trials. Yeah. I've got to make it. I've just got to make the Paralympic team.
That's the goal.
I'm on the go for it. I've got my head straight for it. Like, I'm not going out on the weekends partying. I'm like, no legs, no going to the pub. No, not happening.
Yeah. Well, look, I remember when we caught up a little while ago, I can see how determined you are about going to the Olympics. Before we do fast track into going on to the Olympics, I'd love to talk about the recovery process coming out of that. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember when we caught up, you said you had to learn everything again. Mm-hmm. Could you take me through what that process was?
So getting out of the hospital, it was like quite hard. I restarted a whole new life because I never knew apparently I was a completely different person before the accident.
Really?
So different.
What did they say about what you were like versus what you are like now?
So because I really hit my head so badly that I now have like a traumatic brain injury. And so my emotions and everything, it's very, very high. So sad, happy, angry. And I do have a lot of support though. Hence asking that is I have like support workers and I have a behavior coach and OT, of course, because I overpack things. Yeah. Like I take oh God, it's just not good.
Imagine your suitcase going over to Paris for the Olympics. It's going to be wild.
Okay, not going to lie. When I went to the world titles last year, my dad asked Swimming Australia if I could have 2 suitcases.
No way.
Yes, because I like taking a lot of things.
Can you yeah. Well, hey, I mean, you gotta have all the outfits, right? Going back to the learning, what you
Yeah.
had to learn. What were some of the first things that you kind of had to learn? Could you explain
So
that?
I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk for like 5 months. So I lived in Royal Brisbane Hospital, and they said I never would. They said I literally won't ever talk or walk again. I proved the world wrong. I'm like, I got this.
Really?
Okay.
Did they tell that straight to you, or did they tell it to
my
your
mum and dad? I
Yeah.
was out. I was not. I wasn't good.
Yeah.
But they just like literally said like she's not gonna live. Like I've got a big scar on my knee, and I had a rock stuck in my hand, and they never stitched my knee for 3 weeks because in ICU they didn't do it because they said I'm not gonna live. She's not gonna live, and the brain was quite bad, and they were just like. My lung, because it collapsed so badly, I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
That they just pulled the pin, saying like, I don't know, she's not gonna live.
It sounds like there was multiple injuries. It wasn't just your head; it was your lung. Do you know what, or can you recall what your injuries were?
So I apparently when the accident happened as well, I got a lot of blood clots at the back of my neck, and they said like they're so bad. I'm gonna die because you die easily from blood clots, like a lot. So the weirdest thing is that, which is like another miracle. I'm just like, wow,
You're a walking miracle.
Oh
Lex.
my god! They said that because all these blood clots in the back of my neck, they said I had to have a tube. So my lung, I couldn't breathe, so I had to have a tube in me, and they had to stitch. So I've got a scar on the side of me, and they had to like weirdly stitch or put a tube into my lung.
Yeah.
It was different. But they said like all these blood clots so bad and stuff, and they did tell mum and dad like she's not gonna live or anything. So also for 2 weeks having the big tube in my mouth, they said everyone had to come in because they took the tubes out to test if I could breathe, but I couldn't. So they put all the tubes back in, and everyone had to sadly come in, and my whole family had to come and say goodbye to me. Really? And then the next day, they turned the machine off, and I breathed. I went, I breathed.
Wait, let's not, we can't just move on from that.
ADHD,
I feel like that's a huge part of the story. Like,
yeah, I breathed because,
But they were going to turn the machines off.
Yeah, so they did the 2 weeks in, they turned it off, but I wouldn't breathe. So they were like, it's a goodbye. Everyone's going to come say goodbye to me. And then, they turned it off the next day, and I breathed. And I breathed.
Jeez, they can't kill you.
No, I'm not done. No.
They can't kill you, Lex. Have you spoken? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. And then, the blood clots. So when they said they were so bad, they said, like, I'm going to die. But then apparently on the day of the accident, it was 3 days in, I kept having blood clots at the back of my neck. It was maybe the 4th day or something, and they kept telling mum and dad and stuff because mum and dad were always there. And weirdly, they disappeared. They were like, what? Really? The doctors were like, there's such bad blood clots, and they disappeared. Yeah. They just disappeared out of my neck, weirdly.
Yeah, gotcha.
I was just like, what?
And so what did your parents say? Have you spoke to your parents about that moment where they walked in and they was going to say goodbye? Like, how were they feeling about it?
Yeah, my mum and dad tell me a lot because my memory isn't the best, but they tell me a lot about it. And yeah, it's sad, but like they love the fact that I fought so hard to live. I wanted to. I was fighting so hard. I was like, I want to live. I've got this. I'm going to walk and I'm going to talk. Yeah.
So what I'm really intrigued to know is the process of coming out of the hospital, like the recovery process. Like, what was the learning process like? Was there any things that stood out to you where you had to learn all over again?
Yeah, so I had to learn how to like walk and talk again. And it was like very hard because it was difficult to do that. And then I also had to have a lot of help with my emotions and behavior because I upset a lot in my brain, but mainly that. So I even have a behavior coach now because I have to learn how to be with others, around others, and I know their emotions as well. And, you know, I can get sad, happy, angry in a minute or a second because I really upset my brain.
What kind of stuff do you do with the behavior coach?
So we just go through like little situations. Yeah. Like if my friends, actually in my room, I have all these butterflies at the top and in the middle a person like talking webs and then down the bottom bugs. So if she asks me a question and she goes, your best friend has a crush on a boy you used to date. Let's say that she says that. I would go to the bug, which is a negative, and I would go, I would go off at her.
Yeah.
But no, I've got to play that and I've got to be a web and be like, yeah, it's still really upsetting for me like a bug, but so great for you as a butterfly and I've got to walk away. So I have to learn how to do that.
So you'll do all these different situations.
Yeah, it's because I have to learn how to be against people because I'm sometimes like when I got out of the hospital and stuff, I am just so honest. I have so much honesty that if I think someone's wearing not the nicest set of clothes, I'll happily go tell them.
How am I wearing? What's the kit like today?
It's actually not bad. Not bad.
I know you would tell me straight away anyway.
It's actually not bad. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then so like what else? What other scenarios would you play out? Would you play out a podcast, like a fake podcast setting? Or like interviews? Because I know you've done a lot of interviews, like even more recently with the Iconic, which looked amazing by the way, really cool. And even like Koala. Like, do you play those scenarios out?
Yeah, we do. We do a fair bit of it because I have her for like a few hours on a Monday.
Yeah.
So I have to learn like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of cool to learn about though because it just helps me refresh my brain to know.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's But another thing that I would say is a big goal is the fact that I would love the world to, like a lot of people in this world, to have more awareness of brain injuries and mental health.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing I look at because no people around me have any awareness. I actually, really enough to tell you this, but yeah, I lost a lot of friends because no one could accept or understand who I am now.
Yeah.
They couldn't be like, they just couldn't. They just really couldn't. So they just went. So it was like acceptance and just like awareness of people like this.
Was that hard to go through?
It was really hard. Like it was really hard and it like just my mum just was like, she was just very like, it's just not right because like I'm a completely different person than who I used to be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what kind of things, like you said, you want to like raise awareness, like, and I said you've been so great and being so vocal about what is it, the Flex for Lex? Like you've done a lot of like interviews. Like is that part of the way to raise the awareness, do you think?
Yeah, because I just think that like a lot of people need to know that like when accidents happen, like bad accidents like mine for an instance, it's not just like, oh, she fell off a bike, she's all good. She probably has a little sore knee because she fell off, it's all good. But it's like you have to go deeper than that to know that it's actually a lot more than what they're thinking, going, oh, yeah, she gets so angry at me. I don't know why she gets so angry. And then they just kind of, they're like, oh, whatever. It's like they don't really want to understand why I'm like that.
Yeah.
Or like stuff like that. So it just kind of, the awareness of it would be great. And I would love there to be a day for a traumatic brain injury awareness day.
Really?
I really would.
I would love that as well.
Because there is a brain injury day, but that's a different thing.
Yeah.
So you're born with a brain injury, but a traumatic brain injury is something when it's a big accident that happens.
I would 100% get behind that day. I don't know if you know, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I got, so I used to play rugby league.
Yeah.
And I got medically retired with concussion. So traumatic brain injury, which was like a lot more mild than a significant brain injury, but it was just a lot of like repeat head knocks. And you see it all the time. And especially guys who are a little bit later in life, they see more of the side effects a little bit more. But it's sad. Like it's sad to see people go through it. But then I look at someone like you who has like had, because I think you told me it was one of the most significant brain injuries that the doctors had ever seen, correct?
It was like one of the worst traumatic brain injuries. And because I had my bone taken off and my brain blew so big, but they were like, they actually had to cut a little bit out because it blew. Wow. And having the surgeries, I had 9 brain operations and my mum and dad had to sign a 50% chance I will survive. Wow. So it was never going to be like I would, but I did. I'm like,
you did. That's what I mean. And that's why your story is so inspiring because, you know, you're at the way extreme end, right? And it's the whole spectrum, right? But you're on the extreme end. And I think any of us can go into life after looking what you've done with that positive mentality of being like, you know what, I can't walk. I'm going to walk. I'm going to learn to manage my emotions. I'm going to learn to play these little scenarios. Like you are just the epitome of like being, all right, well, what's really, is it really that hard? You know what I mean? Do you think you've always been that positive person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just like, I don't know. I just feel like we only have one life. You've got to live it to the fullest. You can't, you've just got to keep going. You've got to make it the best life ever.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I'm like, you only get one chance.
Oh, I love hearing that
You really
so
do.
much. Well, it's so inspiring. And then even like like the learnings of even about, like you were telling me about how you got your license again. Could you tell me that story? Because that was so cool.
Okay. So I got out of the hospital at the start of 2022, so 2 years ago. And my mum and dad said, like, no, Lex, you can't drive, like, cannot. Like, and my brain was really high in emotions, everything, because I just got out of the hospital. Very damaged brain.
I'm sure the doctors said you're probably not supposed to drive.
They said, never drive again.
Yeah. Oh,
they
really?
actually made it quite cool to say, no, she's never driving again, never.
Yeah.
But because, yes, my ADHD is really high, I'm like, I got my brothers one day, okay?
Yeah.
This is not good.
Yeah.
I was just saying to my brothers, and I said to them, please, I kept forcing them every day getting out of the hospital. I wanted to drive. I made them take me to the AFL grounds and drive around the AFL ground. So my brothers took me and let me drive around the AFL grounds. I was allowed to. That's the only approval I got.
Gotcha.
So basically semi-road because it was a little bit, but not completely. But I was driving. I was having the best time listening to this litty music. I was going the best time of my life. Yeah. And then the next bit, so my brothers filmed it because they were in the back. One of my brothers in the back of the car, the other one in the front, telling me, directing me because I still didn't really know how to drive. And so Jack showed me the video and he goes, do not send this to anyone. You're not allowed to. I was like, okay. I went and showed Dad instantly. Yeah. I was like, I want to show Dad so I can get it.
Did your dad get angry at your brothers?
So angry. Dad actually, this is actually my dad's ADHD too, so he did something he shouldn't have done either. He literally, so he saw the video, showed him the video, and then I was at my friend's house and he drives around there and he goes, Lex, drive me to swim training. He let me drive myself to swim training that day, but him in the passenger seat. Yeah. Then he sent it off to the brain doctors, not the videos or anything, but he like sent them saying Lex wants to drive. Yeah. So they said, oh, she's going to have to go on her L's. So I was on my L's for 2 years.
So you have to do that whole process. I was saying, you've already done it. You got to do it all again.
Yep. I was on my L's for 2 years. Yeah. And then, it was hard. It was really hard. And then they gave me the approval of last year, halfway through last year, or just a little bit at the start. They let me because I was doing good. I wasn't bad. I was actually not bad. I was actually good at it. Yeah. So they actually let me drive around the Gold Coast, only 10 kilometers away from where I live. Gotcha. And that was it. And that was it. And not at night. That was the only approval I got. And then time went on, and then I had to do a test only at the end of last year. Wow. And I got the approval. And I was like...
End of last year?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I got it. And then they said, like, for the rest of my life, every 6 months, I'll have to be tested. But that's fine because that's the brain damage. That's okay. It's fine. It's annoying, but it's okay.
How did you feel when you got the approval or when you passed the test?
That was whoopsie. I was so happy. I was like, oh my goodness, it was the best moment ever. Yeah. I just thought it was the best thing ever. I could drive myself to SeaWorld. I was like, oh.
Was that the first place you went?
Yeah, and I go there for $30 with my companion card. So I was like,
that's so great. But I imagine that would give you such a sense of like freedom and independence as well, because you've been, through the whole learning process, you've been through the whole recovery process. It's got to give you a whole bunch of freedom. Yeah.
It was just so happy. I finally have something that I've wanted for 2 years getting out of the hospital. Yeah. And another thing I wanted was my hair, and it is growing back. So I'm like, oh yes.
I'd love to talk about another thing that I'm sure you're very excited about is goals post the injury, the Olympics. How are you feeling about the upcoming events?
Really excited. I think it's going to be really good. And of course, I want to bring home something special. Gold. That's very, got my head driven for it. And I'm just like so like determined and passionate about it that I'm like, you're gonna do it, Lex. You've just got to talk, you know what? You just got to be so much high on yourself and loving yourself so much. You got to go, you got this.
You're kind of like almost like you're manifesting it. Like even when we caught up, you're like, yeah, like you're so determined. I can feel the energy from you. Like that's just, you've got your eyes on the goal and you're going to do it.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's training going? How are you feeling like in the pool?
It's good. It's hard. It's like a lot. But like it's so worth it. Like it's good. And it gives me something. Like it makes me have a goal because it's a job. I find it a job.
Yep.
And I'm there all the time and it's like I've got to work so hard for what I want. That's how I see it. So I'm like I've got a big goal in my head and then I've got this.
What are the main events that you're going to be participating in?
So the 50 freestyle and the 100, but the 100 is my love, the freestyle as well. It is my go-to. Oh yeah. It's everything I love. I'm like, yeah, got this.
Sorry, you go.
And then I am also doing the 2 relays. So I'll be the freestyler though. Yeah, I'll be the freestyle.
How does it work with the classification in the relay? Is it everyone S9 or can it vary?
Yeah, so it has to be a scoring of 32. So someone that's S3.
Yep.
So it goes all the way to that. So I'm S9 and there'll be an S10 and there might be an S8 or another S8. Yep. But it has to equal 34 or 32 points.
So just for people who are listening, I imagine S1 is the start and it goes all the way up to S10?
I think S3 is the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just
S10, that's for physical. That's like physical damage.
Yeah.
And then S11 to S14. So S11 is sight. So like they can't see, they're fully blind. And S12 is like half blind. And then S13 is quarter. And S14 is, what do you call it? Like autism and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes like that.
Have you met any cool people along the way?
All of them. You know what? I want to say this. They are so inspiring.
Yeah.
It inspires me, the fact that they're there and, you know, when they probably got told they'd never be able to swim, look at them go.
Yeah.
It just proves a point in this world. It's like, oh, they're just going to fight for it. When you want it, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And like even like I've said this before in this podcast, it's like it's so inspiring. Like it honestly is. And when you look back, is there kind of like a life learning or like a learning that you took out of the whole process?
Out of the whole accident?
The accident, yeah. Is it something that you look back on and think, wow, like I've learned a lot from this?
Yeah, I just think I've come so far. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just think I have. I've kept going and I've just a miracle really, but I'm just like really proud of myself for still sticking here and still being here and living.
Any advice that you could give to young Paralympians coming up?
You've got to have a lot of like passion and determination and you've got to just have your mindset on that. And I just think that they just don't give up. You're going to believe so hard in yourself. And the biggest thing I look at is to love yourself first. That is how everything becomes a lot better, when you're loving yourself first.
Lex, I've absolutely loved this. I've loved this conversation so much. Before we do wrap things up, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we finish things up?
I don't think so.
Hey,
not that I can think of anything.
Hey, honestly, like, thank you so much for coming in and just being so open to tell your story today. Like, I know when we first caught up at Blackboard in varsity on the Gold Coast, I remember thinking, I was like, this is such an incredible, because I remember hearing the story when it first happened, and then to sit down with you, and obviously I went back through and I watched all the news and I looked at all the articles and it was such a wild story, and then to sit with you and just see how passionate and determined you are to make the Olympics, it is super impressive and it's super inspiring. So thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.